Imagine living where exposed skin can freeze within minutes, while homes stand on permafrost, isolated islands, and dangerous mountain slopes. Temperatures can plunge below -60 degrees Celsius, while avalanches, polar bears, thin air, and collapsing ground threaten daily life. These are real communities surviving at Earth's limits. Would you dare to set foot on these lands where nature challenges all human limits? One, Oymyakon, Russia. Oymyakon, Russia, looks less like a village built for people and more like a frozen outpost where winter never truly loosens its grip. Temperatures here have fallen below -60 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze exposed skin within minutes and turn ordinary machines into unreliable tools. Homes are heavily insulated, engines are often kept running, and water systems must be protected from ground that remains frozen almost year-round. Generations have adapted daily routines to conditions that would shut down most communities. The real danger is not dramatic cliffs or avalanches, but constant exposure. A stalled vehicle, broken heating system, or simple mistake outdoors can quickly become life-threatening. Yet families still work, attend school, raise animals, and continue normal routines beneath a brutally clear and silent sky. In Oymyakon, survival is not an emergency plan. It is simply the rhythm of everyday life. Two, Longyearbyen, Svalbard, Norway. Longyearbyen on Norway's Svalbard archipelago is one of the world's northernmost settlements, where colorful houses stand on frozen ground beneath mountains shaped by snow, darkness, and Arctic wind. For months each year, the sun disappears completely, leaving the town in polar night. The danger extends far beyond the cold. Permafrost beneath buildings is thawing, increasing the risk of ground movement, while steep slopes can release avalanches after heavy snow. Outside town limits, residents must also remain alert for polar bears roaming the wilderness. Daily life is built around adaptation. Homes require constant heating, infrastructure must be designed for frozen soil, and travel beyond the settlement demands serious preparation. Despite this, Longyearbyen has schools, shops, research facilities, and families living ordinary lives. It feels less like a normal town than a human island holding its position at the edge of the Arctic. 3. Little Diomede, Alaska, USA. Little Diomede, Alaska, is a village pressed against the steep side of a rocky island in the Bering Strait, where winter ice can surround the community and make the outside world feel impossibly far away. There are no roads connecting it to mainland Alaska, and almost no flat ground for expansion. Houses are stacked along the slope above a narrow shoreline, exposed to fierce wind, freezing spray, and storms moving across the Bering Sea. When weather turns bad, travel can stop entirely, leaving residents dependent on stored supplies and limited transportation. Life here requires constant adaptation. People move by foot, boat, helicopter, or seasonal routes shaped by ice rather than highways. From across the water, the village looks like a small patch of human life attached to bare rock. In winter, when sea and sky blend into one grey-white horizon, Little Diomede can seem almost cut off from the planet. (4) La Rinconada, Peru. La Rinconada, Peru rises high in the Andes at more than 16,000 feet above sea level, where thousands of people live in thin air beside glaciers and mountain slopes. At this elevation, every breath carries less oxygen, and even simple physical work can become exhausting. The settlement grew around gold mining, drawing workers to a place where cold, altitude, and living conditions shape daily survival. Homes are packed across uneven ground, often with limited infrastructure, while temperatures fall below freezing at night. The greatest danger is invisible. Long-term exposure to extreme altitude can strain the heart and lungs, while mining adds risks from heavy labor, unstable tunnels, and harsh conditions. Yet people continue arriving in search of opportunity. La Rinconada is a contradiction, a community built not where life is easy, but where the promise hidden inside a frozen mountain is strong enough to keep people living above the clouds. (5) Yakutsk, Russia. Yakutsk, Russia is a full-size city built on permafrost in one of the coldest inhabited regions on Earth, proving that extreme winter does not require people to live in a remote village. During the coldest months, temperatures can fall far below -40 degrees Celsius, turning streets into frozen breath and ice fog. Buildings are raised or specially engineered to avoid transferring too much heat into the frozen ground beneath them. Cars, pipes, heating systems, and construction methods must be adapted to conditions that can destroy ordinary infrastructure. The danger comes from how quickly normal life can fail when heating stops or transportation breaks down. Exposure outside becomes serious fast, while machines behave differently in severe cold. Even so, hundreds of thousands of people work, study, shop, and raise families here. Yakutsk feels impossible because it is not merely surviving winter, it has built an entire modern city around it. Six, Dhankar Village, India. Dhankar Village, India appears to have been placed on the edge of collapse, high in the cold desert of Spiti Valley. Its old mud brick homes and monastery cling to a narrow ridge of eroded earth above deep valleys. The settlement stands at roughly 12,700 feet, where winters are long, oxygen is thin, and heavy snow can isolate the region. Unlike villages anchored to solid cliffs, parts of Dhankar rest on fragile sediment, shaped continuously by wind, rain, and erosion. That instability makes the village especially dangerous. Crumbling slopes, narrow paths, and steep drops leave little margin for error, while traditional buildings must withstand freezing temperatures and shifting ground. For centuries, residents adapted by building from local stone, mud, and timber, creating thick walls that help retain heat. Seen from below, Dhankar looks less like a village on a mountain and more like part of the mountain slowly breaking away. Seven, Ittoqqortoormiit, Greenland. Ittoqqortoormiit, Greenland, is one of the most isolated settlements in the Arctic, a cluster of colored houses surrounded by mountains, sea ice, and enormous wilderness with few neighboring towns. For much of the year, snow and frozen water dominate every direction. There are no roads linking the community to the rest of Greenland. Access depends on aircraft, boats, and seasonal conditions, meaning weather can decide when people, food, and supplies are able to move. The cold is only part of the danger. Residents live in polar bear territory. Storms can arrive quickly, and long darkness reshapes daily routines. Hunting and travel outside town require knowledge of ice and changing Arctic conditions. Yet the settlement remains alive with families, schools, and traditions. From a distance, its colorful homes seem almost unreal against the white landscape, like a tiny human signal refusing to disappear into one of the emptiest places on Earth. Nine, Norilsk, Russia. Norilsk, Russia, rises from the Siberian Arctic as a large industrial city built in an environment where winter seems powerful enough to stop civilization. For roughly 8 months of the year, average temperatures remain below freezing, and severe winter outbreaks can push temperatures below -50 degrees Celsius or -58 Fahrenheit. Buildings, heating systems, vehicles, and underground infrastructure must all function on permanently frozen ground, while residents endure weeks when the sun barely appears. What makes Norilsk especially striking is its scale. This is not a tiny polar research station, but a functioning city where people continue working, shopping, raising families, and commuting through Arctic darkness. Snowstorms and intense cold can reduce visibility and make even short outdoor journeys dangerous. Seen beneath winter fog and industrial lights, Norilsk resembles an isolated mechanical island surrounded by thousands of miles of frozen Siberian wilderness. Kandovan, Iran. Kandovan, Iran looks as if an entire village has been carved into a frozen field of giant stone cones. For more than 700 years, families have lived inside volcanic formations instead of building conventional houses above the ground. Winter transforms these narrow mountain paths completely. Temperatures in the wider highland region can fall to around -20 degrees Celsius or -4 Fahrenheit, while heavy snow and ice turn steep stone walkways into dangerous natural slides. The Spiti-like cold is not the only challenge. Residents must climb continuously because almost no part of the settlement is flat. The thick volcanic walls provide natural insulation, helping interiors remain more stable than the freezing air outside. Many homes extend several levels into the rock, creating living spaces protected from wind and temperature swings. Under deep snow, Kandovan appears less like architecture and more like a mountainside that humans somehow learned to live inside. Utqiagvik, Alaska, USA. Utqiagvik, Alaska stands on the edge of the Arctic Ocean at more than 71 degrees north, where winter brings darkness, frozen ground, and temperatures that can make ordinary outdoor activity dangerous. January normal temperatures are around -21 degrees Celsius during the day and roughly -28 degrees Celsius at night. The town is built on permafrost, so homes and infrastructure must be carefully designed to prevent heat from destabilizing the frozen soil beneath them. For weeks each winter, the sun remains below the horizon. Wind blowing across open Arctic terrain makes the cold feel even more severe, while sea ice stretches outward beyond the settlement. Yet thousands of residents continue their daily routines here. Schools open, families travel, and traditional subsistence activities continue. Utqiagvik is a place where winter does not interrupt life. Human life has been redesigned around winter itself. Komic Village, India. Komic Village, India sits more than 14,000 feet above sea level in Spiti Valley, where a handful of whitewashed homes stand against an enormous landscape of barren mountains and snow. During severe winter periods, temperatures can fall toward -30 degrees Celsius or -22 Fahrenheit. At this elevation, freezing weather combines with thin air, strong wind, and isolation. Heavy snowfall can block roads for extended periods, leaving residents dependent on supplies prepared before winter closes the surrounding mountain routes. Traditional mud and stone houses use thick walls and small openings to conserve heat. Families must also manage limited water because much of the surrounding moisture remains locked in snow and frozen ground. When winter covers the valley, roads disappear beneath white emptiness, and movement becomes difficult. Komic feels like a tiny settlement, placed where the atmosphere itself seems too thin and cold for permanent human life. Tuktoyaktuk, Canada. Tuktoyaktuk, Canada sits directly beside the Arctic Ocean in the Northwest Territories, where houses stand on frozen ground that is becoming increasingly vulnerable to change. Winter temperatures frequently fall below -25 degrees Celsius, while station data from several years show January averages often near the upper -20s. cold alone would make life difficult, but Tuktoyaktuk faces another threat beneath its buildings. Permafrost that once formed a stable foundation is thawing, while coastal erosion continues attacking the shoreline. Homes, roads, storage areas, and traditional infrastructure must constantly adapt as frozen ground shifts or disappears. For residents, winter also brings long darkness, blowing snow, and an ocean transformed into ice. Tuktoyaktuk is therefore dangerous in two opposite ways. Extreme cold dominates much of the year, yet warming temperatures are weakening the very frozen ground that once made settlement possible. Ushguli, Georgia. Ushguli, Georgia, lies high in the Caucasus beneath enormous snow-covered peaks, where medieval stone towers rise above a cluster of homes that have survived centuries of harsh mountain winters. January averages are around -10°C, or about 13 Fahrenheit, with typical nighttime temperatures dropping near -14°C. Heavy snowfall can isolate the settlement for long periods, transforming narrow roads into blocked mountain corridors and making access from the outside world extremely difficult. Traditional Svan towers were originally built for defense, but their thick stone construction also fits naturally into this severe environment. Families adapted their homes, food storage, animals, and seasonal routines around months of cold and snow. When storms cover the valley, the surrounding mountains almost erase the settlement from view. Only dark stone towers remain visible above the white landscape, making Ushguli look like a medieval fortress, trapped inside a frozen world. Qaanaaq, Greenland. Qaanaaq, Greenland, is one of the northernmost permanent communities on Earth, where brightly painted houses sit between mountains, sea ice, and an Arctic landscape that can remain frozen for most of the year. The mean temperature in January is about -23.9°C, while February averages roughly -24.6°C. Winter temperatures across northern Greenland can sometimes fall toward -40°C, especially when cold air settles over the ice-covered region. There are no major highways connecting Qaanaaq with distant Greenlandic towns. Transportation depends heavily on aircraft, boats, snow machines, and seasonal ice conditions. Residents have adapted generations of hunting, travel, clothing, and food storage to this environment. During polar darkness, the settlement becomes a small collection of lights, surrounded by almost endless blackness, snow, and frozen sea. One of the clearest examples of humans living at the edge of the habitable world. Namche Bazaar, Nepal. Namche Bazaar, Nepal rises along an amphitheater-shaped mountainside at about 11,500 feet, serving as the main trading and acclimatization hub for travelers heading toward Everest. In January, average temperatures fall to around -7 degrees Celsius, or 19 Fahrenheit, with nighttime lows near -12 Celsius. Cold is only one part of the challenge. Thin air makes physical effort harder, while steep trails, snow, and sudden weather changes can slow movement through the surrounding mountains. Despite its altitude, Namche has shops, lodges, restaurants, and a weekly market, creating the unusual sight of a busy town where almost every road is actually a mountain trail. When winter snow settles across the rooftops, Namche looks like a small human amphitheater carved into the Himalayas, surrounded by peaks that rise far beyond the town itself. Verkhoyansk, Russia. Verkhoyansk, Russia is one of the coldest permanently inhabited places on Earth, buried deep in northeastern Siberia, where winter temperatures reach levels that seem almost incompatible with normal life. In January, the average temperature is around -45 degrees Celsius, or -49 Fahrenheit, while average nighttime lows fall near -48 Celsius. At those temperatures, metal becomes painfully cold to touch, vehicles become difficult to operate, and heating is not comfort, but survival. The town stands in a region famous for enormous seasonal temperature swings, yet families continue living, working, and moving through streets covered in snow and ice for months at a time. Unlike a temporary research base, Verkhoyansk is a community that has endured generations of Siberian winter. When temperatures plunge, the landscape can appear completely motionless, leaving the town like a handful of heated buildings surrounded by an endless frozen interior. 18. Shimshal, Pakistan. Shimshal, Pakistan lies deep in the Karakoram at about 10,200 feet, reached by a narrow mountain road that twists through rocky gorges and along exposed slopes. In January, average temperatures can range from roughly -14 degrees Celsius during the day to around -26 Celsius or -15 Fahrenheit at night. For generations, this high-altitude Waki community was extremely isolated, and road access only reached the village in the early 2000s. Winter still changes everything. Snow, frozen tracks, steep terrain, and long distances from major towns can make transportation difficult, while surrounding glaciers shape both the landscape and water supply. Residents have adapted through agriculture, livestock, stored food, and strong community cooperation. Seen against the enormous Karakoram peaks, Shimshal looks surprisingly green in summer, but in winter, that oasis contracts into a remote cluster of homes holding its ground inside one of Asia's most unforgiving mountain regions. Grise Fiord, Nunavut, Canada. Grise Fiord, Nunavut, sits on Ellesmere Island, more than 700 miles north of the Arctic Circle, making it Canada's northernmost civilian community. Its Inuit name, Utqiagvik, means the place that never thaws out. January averages around -31 degrees Celsius, while February can average close to -32 Celsius or about -25 Fahrenheit. There are no roads connecting Grise Fiord with the rest of Canada. People and essential goods arrive mainly by air, while an annual sea lift brings major supplies and fuel. The surrounding wilderness adds another layer of danger, with polar bears, sea ice, strong winds, and severe cold defining travel outside the settlement. Yet a small community continues living here year-round. Against enormous mountains and frozen water, its houses appear impossibly small, like one of the final human settlements before the map gives way to the high Arctic. Paro Taksang, Bhutan. Paro Taksang, Bhutan is not an Arctic settlement, but its position makes it one of the most impossible places in this journey. The monastery clings to a sheer cliff about 2,950 feet above the Paro Valley, at an elevation of roughly 10,240 feet. In January, nearby Paro sees average nighttime temperatures around -1°C or about 29 Fahrenheit, with colder conditions possible higher on the mountain. Reaching the monastery requires a steep ascent through forest and exposed mountain terrain before visitors cross narrow paths and stairways built against the cliff. Its spiritual history and extraordinary setting have become inseparable from the rock itself, making the complex appear almost suspended above the valley. Cold air, altitude, and the enormous drop create a different kind of danger from Siberia. Paro Taksang proves an impossible home does not need -50-degree weather when gravity itself is waiting outside the door. Barentsburg, Svalbard. Barentsburg, Svalbard, is a Russian mining settlement standing beside Grunfjorden, about 37 miles west of Longyearbyen, surrounded by mountains, snow, and Arctic Sea. January averages around -10°C or 13 Fahrenheit, while historical cold spells have fallen below -35°C. Unlike abandoned Arctic mining towns, Barentsburg remains a year-round community with housing, a school, hospital, cultural facilities, research activity, and its own power infrastructure. Winter brings polar darkness, strong winds, limited visibility, and frozen terrain that can turn travel outside the settlement into a serious undertaking. There are no normal highways linking it with Longyearbyen. The combination of Soviet-era architecture and Arctic isolation gives Barentsburg an unusual atmosphere. Under winter darkness, illuminated apartment blocks rise from the snow like a remote industrial outpost that somehow continues functioning far beyond the edge of ordinary urban life. Kibbe, India. Kibbe, India stands at about 13,800 feet in Spiti Valley, one of the highest inhabited villages in the region. Whitewashed homes sit in a cold desert of bare mountains where winter can isolate communities for months. January temperatures can average near -21°C or -6 Fahrenheit, with nighttime lows approaching -26°C or -15 Fahrenheit. At this elevation, cold combines with thin air and isolation. Water freezes, travel becomes uncertain, and residents must prepare supplies before the harshest part of winter arrives. The surrounding landscape is also famous snow leopard habitat, adding a wild character to an environment already shaped by altitude and extreme weather. Traditional thick-walled homes help residents endure the freezing environment. When snow covers the valley, Kibba appears almost carved into the plateau, a tiny settlement surviving where winter temperatures rival places much farther north. Tuktoyaktuk, Alaska, USA. Tuktoyaktuk, Alaska, sits on Barter Island at the edge of the Beaufort Sea, where a small Inupiat community lives between frozen ocean, tundra, and one of the world's most famous polar bear habitats. In January, average temperatures hover around -24 degrees Celsius or -11 Fahrenheit, with nighttime lows near -27 Celsius. There are no highways connecting the village with Alaska's major cities, so transportation depends largely on aircraft and seasonal conditions. Winter sea ice temporarily connects the island with the mainland, while powerful Arctic winds make already extreme temperatures feel even colder. Polar bears regularly gather near Barter Island, sometimes approaching the settlement while waiting for sea ice to return. Against this enormous white landscape, Tuktoyaktuk feels like a tiny human foothold, where cold, isolation, and one of Earth's largest land predators all meet outside the front door. Refuge de Cosmic, France. Refuge de Cosmic, France, stands at 3,613 meters, or nearly 11,900 feet, above sea level on a rocky ridge overlooking the Vallée Blanche Glacier. It is the second highest staffed mountain refuge in France, surrounded by permanent snow, glaciers, and some of the most exposed terrain in the Mont Blanc Massif. At this elevation, winter temperatures can remain far below freezing, and severe mountain weather can drive conditions toward -20 degrees Celsius or lower, especially when strong winds sweep across the glacier. Reaching the refuge normally begins at the Aiguille du Midi, followed by travel through high-altitude terrain, where thin air, crevasses, sudden storms, and exposed ridges create serious danger. Originally built as a laboratory for cosmic ray research, the refuge now shelters mountaineers. From outside, it appears less like a hotel than a tiny survival station placed directly between rock, ice, and open sky. '25. Pevek, Russia. Pevek, Russia is an Arctic port town on the edge of the East Siberian Sea, where apartment blocks stand against an immense landscape of tundra, snow, and frozen coastline. January is brutally cold, with average temperatures around -31 degrees Celsius or -23 Fahrenheit, and average lows near -34 Celsius. Winter is long, dark, and windy, and temperatures can fall even lower when Siberian cold settles over the region. Vehicles, heating systems, water infrastructure, and daily travel must all continue operating despite conditions that would paralyze many cities. Pevek's location in Chukotka also places it far from Russia's major population centers, increasing its dependence on air and sea transportation. During the deepest winter, snow and darkness reduce the surrounding world to almost nothing beyond the town's lights. Pevek resembles a remote Arctic machine built to keep functioning while the frozen wilderness presses against it from every direction. '26. Pasu, Pakistan. Pasu, Pakistan lies in the upper Hunza Valley beneath the dramatic Pasu cones, where homes and fields occupy a narrow corridor between towering mountains, the Hunza River, and massive glaciers. Winter across the high Hunza region can become severe, with January temperatures in the broader area dropping well below freezing and nighttime conditions potentially falling toward -20 degrees Celsius or lower at higher elevations. The danger here is changing as rapidly as the landscape. Melting glaciers, glacial lake floods, and river erosion have already destroyed homes and agricultural land around Pasu, forcing some families to relocate more than once. Roads squeezed between cliffs and rivers can also become vulnerable when rockfall, flooding, or ice disrupts transportation. Seen beneath the jagged Pasu cones, the village appears remarkably peaceful. But behind that beauty lies a community living between freezing mountains and a glacier system powerful enough to reshape the valley itself. 27. Ilulissat, Greenland. Ilulissat, Greenland, stands beside Disco Bay, where brightly colored houses overlook a frozen world filled with enormous icebergs drifting from one of Greenland's most active glacier systems. In January, the mean temperature is about -12.5 degrees Celsius, or roughly 10 Fahrenheit, while February averages close to -14.7 Celsius. Winter brings snow, strong winds, frozen ground, and long periods of darkness that reshape transportation and everyday routines. Boats dominate during open water seasons, while snowmobiles and dog sleds become important when the landscape freezes. The extraordinary danger and beauty come from living beside constantly moving ice. Massive icebergs fill the nearby waters, making the town appear tiny against the scale of the Arctic environment. Yet Ilulissat remains a thriving Greenlandic community. From above, its colorful buildings look like scattered pieces of paint beside an endless white fjord, where human life exists directly beside one of the planet's most powerful frozen landscapes. Manang, Nepal. Manang, Nepal sits about 3,500 meters, or roughly 11,500 feet, above sea level in a high Himalayan valley, surrounded by barren cliffs, snow-covered peaks, and glaciers. Winter temperatures regularly fall below freezing, and nighttime conditions during the coldest periods can approach around -10 degrees Celsius or lower. At this altitude, the danger is not simply temperature. Oxygen levels are reduced, making physical effort more exhausting and increasing the risk of altitude sickness for people who arrive too quickly. Winter snow and ice can make mountain trails difficult, while the surrounding terrain limits road access and separates the settlement from Nepal's lower valleys. Climate data for the Manang region also show the strong, high-altitude character of this environment at roughly 3,500 meters. Traditional stone houses help protect families from wind and cold. In winter, Manang feels like a settlement caught between frozen mountains, where every journey begins with altitude already working against the body. Tiksi, Russia. Tiksi, Russia stands near the Laptov Sea in the Republic of Sakha, one of the harshest Arctic regions on Earth. January temperatures average around -30 degrees Celsius or -22 Fahrenheit, while average nighttime lows fall near -33°C. February is even colder, with lows averaging about -34°C. The town was developed around its Arctic seaport and remains separated from major Russian cities by enormous distances. Tiksi lies more than 1,200 kilometers from Yakutsk by air and roughly 2,000 kilometers away by land routes. Winter brings powerful winds, polar conditions, permafrost, and a coastline locked in sea ice for much of the year. NOAA even operates an Arctic observatory here because of Tiksi's unusually exposed polar environment. Under darkness and blowing snow, Tiksi looks like a distant Soviet outpost, standing at the frozen edge of the continent.